Welcome to another edition of Fired Up for Friday. This Friday, April 10th, we have a jam-packed release schedule. And as always, we have the album of last week, which I didn't even know was dropping. And when it did, it was such a surprise of how much of a step up it was from their previous album. So make sure you stick around so you don't miss what album that was. I would like to thank the band's labels and PR for sending all this fire over for me to check out. My only complaint is there's not enough hours in the week to listen to all the heavy I want to. And remember, if you're in a band, PR, or a label and you got new music releasing and you want to be featured on Fired Up for Friday or some other aspect of the Metal Institute of Thrashology, reach out to me. The Metal Institute of Thrashology at gmail.com, one all long word. And if you're a listener or a viewer and you have some complaints or some recommendations for me to check out, send them there too. I'm always looking for new riffage. So let's dive right in and see what has me fired up. This one threw me for a loop. Seattle, Washington's Witchripper did exactly that on their latest release, Through the Hourglass. They ripped! Taking several sounds from all over rock and heavy metal, this is a rich, textured album combining those sounds into one heavily caffeinated riff fest and blending in some darker roasted influences like maybe High on Fire or even Mastodon. Being able to craft emotions through layered vocals in a storm cloud to overcast some of the sunnier, brighter moments of the vocals, much like the Pacific Northwest. Catch those moments of brightness when you can, as Through the Looking Glass can be quite gloomy at times. There's plenty of dramatic elements, with rise and falls of riffs, melodies, and storylines. This is a solid album. And these supersonic sounds are for a wide array of fans, ranging from bands like Valkyrie and Baroness, Howling Giant, Elder, High on Fire, the Mighty Mastodon, like I mentioned before, and so many more. And if you're a fan of any of those bands I just named, check this out. You have to. It's great. Huge guitars, a driving low end where the bass and drums show that they got chops. But they keep it in that nice little pocket that they carved out for themselves, all while the riffs and guitar tones take you everywhere. And through quite a few subgenres of metal, but I'm not complaining because I love them all. Each song individually is well written, well executed, and well structured. But as a collective whole, Through the Hourglass is a truly amazing album. And this was my first time hearing Witchripper, but it damn sure won't be the last. I promise you that. And I'm giving this one an 86, and it would have been on my list for Album of the Year, but I got some more bangers coming up in this episode. So stick around, wait and see what I got leading the pack. Psych rockers with more emphasis on the rock side of the house, LA's LA, Lords of Altamont are back with their newest album, Forever Loaded. Loaded with some kick-ass sounds. And Forever Loaded is a good, laid-back rocker with some get-up-and-go that delivers on some mid-tempo grooves. And these veterans know how to capture some of that old-school live energy on this release, where if you close your eyes and you crank it loud enough, can you ever get it loud enough? Hell no! But you can almost feel like this is being played at a high school field party. Do you guys still have field parties, or am I just that old? Churning out tons of grooves from the low end, the dudes in Lords of Altamont never take themselves too serious, and that's half of the appeal of the album for me. With hidden sounds all over the mix, you'll be starting this album working on your bike, and by the time you're finished, you'll be installing rear view mirrors in your spaceships. This album is far out, and there's a ton going on in the mix, which allowed me to continually come back to this and discover little Easter eggs, putting me on a little Easter egg hunt, which, I have to give them credit, being released just shortly after Easter, it made this album a little bit more fun for me. Who doesn't love a scavenger hunt? Especially when it's heavy and it sounds like this. And with so much going on in the mix, after several listens, I feel like I'm only scratching the surface. So I'll give these dudes an 82. but if I dug a little deeper, there's a good chance I'll find a lot more. This is one of those albums you can listen to 20 or 30 times and it still sounds fresh. How can you not love something like that? And coming off of the Heavy Psych Sounds label, you kinda know what you're getting into. But you also know it's damn quality, it's Heavy Psych Sounds. They're a kick-ass label. Australian rockers in the Neptune Power Federation have a sound that's expansive as the ocean on their latest release, Mondo Tomorrow, off of Cruz del Sur Records. Mixing in almost every sound imaginable from late 70s and early 80s rock, and polished it with better gear, updated production, and a firecracker of a front woman in Laws Such, who has control of her voice better than most vocalists do. And don't think she's prim and proper, as she takes listeners all over the place. From prog to punk or rock to pop, I could listen to Laws Such's isolated vocals by themselves and probably by the album. I was sold. But Laws Such is backed by just as competent of a band. Taking sounds from bands like ABBA and The Doors, and they actually made those bands sound good. That's impossible, I thought. That to me alone was mind-blowing. I never thought in my wildest dreams that The Doors or ABBA would actually be good. But here we are. They took those tones, they added a ton of distortion and a half a stick of dynamite on the vocals. The pop sounds are expansive and the rock sounds are as heavy as boulders. And as much as I love this album, I think it would be 100 times better live. Have any of you guys seen Neptune Power Federation live? What's it like? Tell me in the comments. I want to see them. And this will please a wide array of rock and metal fans. I feel Mondo Tomorrow would be for fans of bands like The Doors and ABBA, but also early Iron Maiden, Jimi Hendrix, Guns N' Roses, maybe even the B-52s and Joan Jett a little bit. There's a lot jammed into this album, which means the more you listen to it, the more you can take in. Nobody wants a light, airy metal album. It's called heavy metal. Tons of energy, but the pacing keeps it flowing and at a nice speed, giving you a little moment here and there to pop up and catch your breath. And as much as I was pumping my fist, I needed those breaths of fresh air. I'm old. And good thing Laws Such has so much energy on that mic. She got me riled up. So much so, I'm dancing around with Mondo Tomorrow and in 82. Really a fun album. The more I listen to it, the more fun I have. Make sure you head over to Cruz del Sur Records and check this party out now. Nashville's known as a music town, but when I think of Nashville, I think of country bars and southern draws. And now, the punishing new extreme metal album by Inferi, titled Heaven Wept. What a badass name and artwork. And Inferi can mean many things as a standalone word. Sometimes referring to mythological beings, sometimes referring to death and the other worlds of death. And it could also mean the zombies and corpses moving around, like in the story Harry Potter. Who's not a Harry Potter fan? And what's heavier than Harry Potter? Either way, this album's brutal, no matter what definition you choose. While this is an extreme metal album through and through, I feel like there's some strong progressive metal influences just in the writing and the structure of the songs. But it's not enough to water this down and even lighten it up. This thing's a beast, and it's heavy. Heaven Wept is a monster. Literally, look at all the monsters on the album art. Like, I'm not lying to you. A punishing new release, Heaven Wept, off of the Artisan Era Records, is some extreme metal, but it does border along the lines of some technical death metal, especially with the racing rhythms, the layered and contrasted vocals, and a barrage on the drums, sitting on his throne behind the kit. This extreme metal is performed at a high rate of competency, both in the writing and execution. And Inferi uses melody very sparsely to enrich the sound. A well-balanced album with shifting tempos, speeds, and riffs, all while remaining heavy from start to finish. For fans of bands like Archspire, The Zenith Passage, and Aborted, if you like those guys, you're gonna love Heaven Wept. And even if you just hate those bands I just mentioned, you still might like Inferi. Go check it out! What are you waiting for? The score? It's an 84! This thing rips! I've been waiting an eternity for this album to drop, and the closer that Friday comes, the slower the clock ticks, or so it seems. As soon as I heard the SoCal Thrashers and Nukem were dropping a new album, I knew I had to hear it. I've been a fan of Nukem since their 2016 effort, The Unholy Trinity, which has a cover of one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs, TV Crimes, off of the Dehumanizer album. God, I love that album. And with 10 years past since the release of The Unholy Trinity, does Nukem still have it? Is this album worth the wait? And The Grave Remains is off of Redefining Darkness Records. I know, last week I was saying what a badass label they are, and here we are again with more Redefining Darkness. With Redefining Darkness putting out so many banger albums, it's redefined darkness for me. I once was afraid, but now I love the dark. As soon as I pressed play on The Grave Remains, it started off with some of the sounds that were near and dear to my heart in some of the most formative times of my life. And The Grave Remains starts off by introducing some sounds of some of my favorite memories of my childhood. The shouting chaos, broken glass, gunfire, and crunchy riffs. And that minute or so intro is much needed as it helps prep the listener's ears for the murder, mayhem, and carnage that follows on the next 11 songs. And if you're one of those metalheads who's a little bit queasy at the sight or mention of blood, needles, violence, you might want to exit the ride here because it's going to get a little rough moving forward. No shame in exiting early, not everybody can handle the heavy. Everything on this album screams old school thrash. As much grating and shredding that frontman Steve Brogdon brings to the studio, it's balanced out by the drumming of Norm Leggio and the power of Don Lauder on bass. The rumblings on the bass help bolster and fill out the sound, and the driving drums seem to just push the tempo faster and faster, and it was just what I was looking for. So to answer your question, The Grave Remains, was it worth the wait? No, it wasn't worth the wait. I wanted this album 9 years ago. Who the hell can wait for more heavy? I got no patience. But I'm stoked to be finally getting it, obviously. As distance made the heart grow fonder, and I fucking love this record. And this might be the front runner for Album of the Year. This was the one I was mentioning earlier in the video, saying you're gonna have to stick around and wait and see what it is. Yeah, this is it. But this year, it's been brutal on my neck and my ears. So I would start your listening session on Friday with Nukem's The Grave Remains. You always want to start your day off properly. And when it's that good, it's only gonna get better. And this one, blazing into the A range at a 90. Those tones and that violence. If that damn mail lady would just bring me the wax. I know that bitch took the shit to her crib and is listening to it. But how can I blame her? And now, the album of last week. I love diversity in metal. The more differences we can bring into this genre, the more boundaries get pushed and the more sounds and influences get added into the mix. And while this band of badass women has more of a traditional sound and feel, I feel their newest album is one epic performance and execution. Nervosa returns with the new vocalist, sort of, but the same old quality and brutality that you've come to know and love. Which isn't quality and brutality the two most important parts of metal music? Slave Machine is the newest full-length record from Nervosa off of Napalm Records, which is another record label churning out badass bangers this entire year. They just dropped Exodus's Goliath. What a behemoth that was. Literally, it's like name Goliath, that's a big ass thing. Which is 12 tracks of streamlined, refined thrash metal. All killer, no fiddler, just shy of 45 minutes. And new vocalist, but she's the founding guitarist, so she's not a new member. Prika Amaral, I apologize if I butchered that, stepped into the frontwoman duties for the departed diva Satanica. With huge shoes to fill, Prika not only owns the role, but she delivers an impressive vocal performance while still part of the string section and that twin axe attack. Like I mentioned, Slave Machine is extremely refined but extremely tight, as this album had me engaged from the very first note to the very last riff. With a bunch of heavy topics to accompany the weighty rhythms, I enjoyed the thought-provoking lyrics as much as the riffs. that seem more relevant in the current geopolitical nightmare that we all are living in, with ideas that encourage questioning authority, resistance and rebellion, overcoming adversity, and my personal favorite, refusing to conform just because somebody told you to. I'm a free thinker if you haven't noticed. Tone, structures, and writings are flawless and make this an easy album for me to continually come back to revisit. Bravo, ladies, this is a banger. I'm giving this one a solid 87, but I can see this one growing on me more than it already has. Thanks for hanging out with me. Another episode. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What did I miss so far this year? Let me know in the comments what I need to check out. And most importantly, thank you for watching. See you in the pit.